So I'd just like to say this. I'm very happy to be back in Davos. My first trip here since 2019. So it's been a little bit of a gap. And I'm amazed at how much we've accomplished as an industry, certainly since then, but also as an island. And I'm great to be back here at the GBBC with the incredible and amazing Sandra Rowe. Sandra, here's the thing though, not entirely correct. So the first time that I think we were a member meeting was at UNGA in 2018, but that was not. So this is full circle. Okay. Bermuda's digital asset journey started at a mountaintop chalet at a GBBC reception in Davos 2018, where someone flew in a big tuna and was cutting it up there. And I remember my minister at the time invited everyone to come to Bermuda to chart the future of, at that time we called it crypto. Now we call it digital finance. We've grown up. And it was when we got to the airport at Zurich and people started messaging us and emailing us. We're like, oh my goodness, we need to get it ready. And we did. And just 4 months later, we laid out, I'm probably going forward to where it is, but that's where it started. So this is literally full circle. So GBBC was a place where it started right here. And it's so great to be back after 8 years to share how far we've come with the help of all the people inside this room represented by GBBC. So it's a pleasure to be here, and let's get started.
Let's do it. So as you heard, it started here more than 8 years ago, and Premier, you've been championing digital assets well before they were broadly accepted by any other governments or institutions. Tell us, why did Bermuda take that leap? And now that you look back, how has the journey evolved from experimentation to now what we call production-grade financial infrastructure?
Well, what's important to note is that I don't want to call it an accident how we got into digital finance. I would say that we started. I didn't get elected in 2017, and as some, Bitcoin Max here, someone who says, yes, digital assets are the future, et cetera. I actually did not know much about them. And it wasn't until someone had said that because of Bermuda's expertise in regulation in insurance, that we might be able to parlay that into providing regulatory clarity for digital assets at the time. That is what actually had it. So for us, if we remember the conversation 2017 at the World Economic Forum, it was that blockchain will kill everything. So it's like there's going to be no more insurance companies, no more accountants, no more this, no more that, and everything else. And for a company that is dominated by insurance, it would be quite a challenge if there were no more insurance companies. So we basically said we need to amend our laws so that companies can innovate in Bermuda and not innovate in other places. And so that is where the journey actually started. And so we put together a task force in 2017. And then, as I said earlier, we came here to, and then we introduced the Digital Asset Business Act in 2018 in Bermuda. And so through collaboration, basically 8 years later, we now have more than 50 digital asset business and digital insurers. I think this is actually a bit late. I think we're up to 60 right now. We certainly know that we have global names. And yesterday, as I say, a full circle moment, no pun intended, with a company which I'm about to mention, of course. But yesterday, we did announce a deal between Circle, Coinbase, and Bermuda, two of the world's most trusted digital finance companies, that Bermuda will be accelerating our vision to become the first fully on-chain national economy. And so that is what we are doing.
Yes, it was an incredible, yes, round of applause. It was an incredible announcement to kick off Davos. It's been incredibly well received. And I know that for years of companies coming to Bermuda to domicile and service international customers, a major goal of yours has been to drive local adoption of digital finance. So what does this announcement actually mean for local Bermudians and your residents?
So one of the things, and we have to be honest, because a lot of times, you're in Davos, there's a lot of hype. And we have to be clear on what we have accomplished and how much further we have to go. The reason why we're doing this is that there is an implementation gap on the ground. There is the reality. people in Bermuda aren't necessarily feeling it. So, of course, you've got big companies that are there. You've got these that are all setting up. They're having their headquarters. You're hearing all these things. You're hearing the products are launched. You're hearing the volumes of which they're doing for Bermuda. But what does that mean to the regular mom and pop shop in Bermuda? And that's what we want. We want to ensure that the promise of digital assets and digital finance, what we all speak about how it, lowers barriers, how it reduces fees, how it makes sure that you can better manage your treasure, etc., actually happen. And so that's what this is about. It's about making sure that from a government level, from a small business level, and an individual level, that we actually do deliver it. So I'm happy to talk more about what we have planned, but that's really where we are. We want to make sure that with the infrastructure that is provided by Coinbase and Circle, that our merchants can accept things. We know at our Digital Finance Forum, which we had last year, and we're going to be having again this year in May, where we're going to demonstrate some of the new technologies inside of these partnerships. And what we basically want to show is that digital finance can work domestically, not just internationally, because most of the digital finance adoption that is taking place in Bermuda is taking place at the institutional level. So we have, these master insurance companies and others that are leaning into this. But what we want to do is make sure that for the small mom and pops who are basically getting their revenue, that they can take that money, that they can put that in, it's automatically swept into a USYC account, earning rewards, as it is now called. Let me make sure I'm very good on that. We have something different in our jurisdiction, but we'll press forward to make sure they're earning rewards and other things on these particular tokens. These are things that are important. This is the promise. The fact that people who may not be able to have a significant amount of money can also have access to things that are generating yield, that are generating interest, that are building on these things. So it's not just stable coins, it's investments, it's tokenized money market funds, it's all of those things that we want to be able to provide everyday Bermudians the access to, and we know that we've actually been able to demonstrate us doing that. Should we talk about that as well?
Yes, please.
So, one of the things we did this year at our airdrop, and it's a funny story that I was sharing last night, is we basically invited everyone in the country to come to our Digital Finance Forum, and everyone who attended our Digital Finance Forum, we airdropped them 100 USDC. And it was incredible. This was on I think it was a Coinbase-based wallet, maybe, that was automatically earning rewards, thank you. Don't want to get that wrong. It was automatically earning rewards, and it was so funny because there was this 68-year-old lady who was on the executive of my political party who came to this meeting, and she said a few months later, she's like, "So, Mr. Premier," he says, "Yes, so you remember that thing we had a few months ago? Yes, you said that I'd get, more USDC after a while, and I haven't seen it yet." I was like, hold on one second. And then I had to go back and it gets paid tomorrow. And the next day she was like, "Look, I got," and so it was so refreshing to see someone that old, not someone who would typically think of being able to access that technology, being able to easily use it, and actually anticipating the different things that they can have on those type of platforms. And so that is the innovation of which we're looking to build or bring, and I'm excited to work with those partners to build it.
That's right, and we hope you can all join us for the next Digital Finance Forum this May 11th, where we plan to scale that airdrop. It really was a remarkable demonstration of how regulation can drive local economic development and financial inclusion. And we've started to joke about it a little bit with rewards, but looking beyond our borders, we are starting to see important progress on regulatory clarity, notably with the Genius Act in the United States and the implementation of MiCA across the European Union. And now many of our Commonwealth peers in Canada, Australia, and the United Kingdom have tabled draft stablecoin legislation as well. So how does Bermuda's regulatory regime complement these acts, and how should institutions here today think about Bermuda in their global strategy?
Do you say to complement, or how are these regulations copying what we did in Bermuda in 2018? So for us, we recognize that there's a number of various legislative texts globally that have actually looked at the example of what was put inside the Digital Asset Business Act, and we're proud of that. I remember even way back, Sandra, when we had first met at UNGA in 2018 and others, where we were basically saying we are happy to share this because what we recognize and know that Bermuda cannot be all things to all people. We're not trying to take all the business. We recognize that the more countries, the more jurisdictions that have a regulatory regime that makes sense, that are building off of common sets of principles, is certainly better. So whether it's Genius, whether it's MiCA, whether it's all the other things, if you go ahead and talk to people who are behind putting together those various pieces of legislation, they'll say that they always did make reference to the work of which we've done in Bermuda because it is well known and certainly pioneering from that aspect. So we think that that is the better way to go, and we know that global collaboration is going to happen. These are some of the conversations that I'm having, at the annual meeting, trying to remind persons that if we are going to have this actual promise of a better and more efficient economy, then we are going to have to be able to collaborate across borders. And the challenge which we're having right now is that everyone is trying to go inside of their own little corner. Yes, there are real financial stability risks when talking about digital finance. There are. But the fact is, if we do not come together, as whether or not those are politicians, central bankers, and others work with industry to make sure we are frank about those problems, then we will not be able to do that. So our regulator works with many agencies around the world, whether it's in the UAE, whether it's in the United States, whether it's with the Fed, the SEC, and others, sharing the work of which we've done. We're continuing to make sure that we collaborate and share those. And for anyone in this room who may happen to be a regulator, we are certainly welcome to share information with you because we want to make sure that best practices are known and understood. Because we remember back to the wild, wild days of crypto. Some people say the wild, wild days never left, but there were a whole lot of people who were up to no good. And, and people got burned by that. Some politicians got burned by that too. No names. But I'll just say, so these are important things that as an industry, we do our part to make sure that the industry in itself is better.
So with regulatory clarity progressing around the globe, digital assets are now clearly moving into mainstream financial markets. With tokenization and capital markets emerging as key use cases, which I think the next panel is going to talk about,
Yes.
Bermuda sits at a very interesting intersection with this burgeoning digital finance industry and our historical reinsurance market. So how do you view the opportunity in connecting these two industries?
Well, Bermuda, from a financial service perspective, we're pretty, I don't want to say fortunate. I think that we've worked very hard to establish a true leadership position in insurance and reinsurance, and home to some of the largest insurance and reinsurance companies on the planet. And we're very proud of that. Every major insurance innovation that has happened in the last 50 years has come out of Bermuda, whether it's captives, whether it is all types, whether it's catastrophe bonds, whether it's insurance-linked securities, all those things were innovated in Bermuda under our regulatory framework. And we thought that it was appropriate to take what we're doing on the insurance side and migrate that to digital finance. And we are seeing that innovation happening. We are seeing that convergence happen. But when we are talking about the opportunity that presents itself in Bermuda with our massive insurance industry itself, we are talking about these companies that have large amounts of assets. And this is really around treasury management, but it also feeds into tokenization. Because when we're talking about these catastrophe bonds, or when we're talking about these things which are largely open to institutional investors, where they're looking at putting large amounts of capital into these bonds. What we are already doing in Bermuda is democratizing access to these things where people would not traditionally be able to participate, where you can put your stable coins and use your stable coins to purchase these tokenized assets. So before you had to, have a minimum of $100,000 to go ahead and buy and participate in a catastrophe bond round. Now you can have 100 USCC participate in these type of things. So we are actually demonstrating what happens where you tokenize what are traditional assets which have been happening and give them access. And what does this do? This basically allows there to be more capital, which of course leads to better pricing and more efficient markets. So from that aspect, that is what we're doing. And what we want to make sure is that whether or not it is investment managers or others recognize what it is that we're doing in Bermuda. Bermuda, there's a history between Bermuda and other overseas territories of the United Kingdom, names of whom I will not mention. But you may know who I'm speaking about. There are others who may be better at some areas of financial services than we are. But the one place where Bermuda is undisputed in its leadership is in the digital finance space. And what we want to recognize is when we're talking about the tokenization of everything, in Bermuda, we already have experience in doing it. We have demonstrated examples. This is not something that we are just saying, oh, this is something you may be able to do in our regime. This is something we have. So we do have the right legal structures, the best regulatory frameworks, and of course, a long-standing history of regulatory excellence that can make sure that your businesses can succeed if you want to go down that road of tokenization.
So let's dig into that a little bit. As other jurisdictions race to catch up with the work that Bermuda's been doing and start modernizing their financial infrastructure, fragmentation could become a real risk. And Bermuda plays a very important role in the international business sector. So what principles can other jurisdictions learn from Bermuda that can help guide their regulatory design and cross-border alignment so that innovation can scale globally?
Well, in Bermuda, we call what we have in our financial services sector the Bermuda Triangle. So I'm not entirely certain that other jurisdictions will be able to steal our Bermuda Triangle. But what is our Bermuda Triangle? Our Bermuda Triangle is the relationship between the government, the regulator, and industry. And that is a very important relationship because if you look at the Digital Asset Business Act, and if you even look at the example which I gave in 2018, where we invited persons to come and to show what this looks like, we made sure that we built regulations and legislation that industry wanted and could use. Because a lot of times, people will want to create regulations and think, build it, they will come. But if it isn't properly done, then it is not going to be successful. And we've seen some of that happen in some places around the world. And at the same point in time, if you do not have a credible regulator that can actually stand up to international scrutiny and is actually doing the job of regulation, then you will find yourselves in problems. We have been doing this for some time. And so that unique blend between the government, the regulator, and industry is our unique I guess I would say secret sauce. And so what I would say for persons who are there in industry, please feel free to say, you know what? I have been looking for a regulatory home, and we are doing X, Y, and Z. Do you think this could happen? You may not be ready for a full license, but you may be able to participate in a Bermuda Monetary Authority's Innovation Hub, where you can pioneer and test some of these items. And so let me give you an example of some of the cutting-edge stuff that we're doing in Bermuda. Let me read this to make sure I get it correct. We're looking to add further clarity to our tokenization frameworks. And one of the things that we did last year, completed our first embedded DeFi supervision pilot, where our regulator embedded themselves directly into DeFi protocols to identify their balanced role in decentralized finance. So what does that mean? Very simple. We are now pioneering on how we regulate DeFi. And so from that aspect, these are the types of things that a regulator is willing to engage in partners for. Yes, you can clap for that. I like that. You're excited by that, huh? Because that's what we did. We literally are. And so when I say, and I'm sorry, I know, Sandra, you didn't bring me here to shill Bermuda. My apologies. But we do have the best digital asset regulator on the planet. We have the most experience. We've had no turnover in our regulatory department inside of our regulators since 2018. Our CEO of the Bermuda Monetary Authority was the one who actually wrote the Digital Asset Business Act 8 years ago. Now, 8 years later, he's now the CEO. So we understand there is nothing that we have not seen when it comes to digital finance. And we're not easy. There's a lot of people who've come and we've just said, sorry, go away. But also if you're an investor and if you're investing in a company that has the ability to get a license in Bermuda, there is no question that is gold standard and is an easy way for you to raise further investment if you're able to actually pass that regulatory hurdle.
All right, Premier, you've given a master class on how to drive regulatory innovation, and now it's time for the final question. What is your message that you want to leave with industry leaders, policymakers, and regulators here today?
That Bermuda should be a part of your international digital finance strategy. Now, the reality is Bermuda's not for everyone. You may want to just be regional. You may not have the thoughts of being a global player. But the thing is that if you do have a good product, that product is growing, that product is scaling, or if your investors are demanding that you actually have a regulatory home where you are regulated, which makes it easier to attract institutional capital and others, Bermuda is a place where you can do it. We have demonstrated that if you do digital finance right, it can work. And we have ample examples inside of our ecosystem. There are many different opportunities to participate, as I said. You can start with the Innovation Hub of the Bermuda Monetary Authority, work your way up through our various licensing classes, come and visit us, join some of our associations that we have in Bermuda, whether it's Bermuda Stablecoin Association, or join our wonderful forums that we have in Bermuda. Every year, we have our flagship Digital Finance Forum that will be taking place this year in May, co-hosted by Penrose partners, SALT and Skybridge, and we're looking forward to that edition this year. We're going to be doing more stuff and unveiling more items. So the reality is that Bermuda can play a role. We may not be the right place for you, but we also could be the right place for you, and you will never find out if you don't ask. So can I ask persons who are part of the Bermuda team to raise their hands? If you see any of these people, make sure you ask them, and they'll be able to tell you all about digital finance. And so with that, I think we are done. But hey, thank you all, GBBC, for having me, and thank you for starting this journey 8 years ago.
Amazing.